It was Christmas Eve. Snow was falling outside, covering the streets in white. Inside the house, the fire was warm, the music was cheerful, and the family was gathered around the grand Christmas tree. Laughter filled the air as my parents handed out expensive gifts to my brother and sister. My brother received a brand new gaming laptop. My sister was given the latest iPhone wrapped in golden paper. And me? I stood silently in the corner, holding a thin blanket in my hands. My parents turned to me with cold eyes. My mother pointed to the garage door and said, "You can sleep there tonight. The rooms are full, and you are not exactly a guest of honor in this house." I opened the door to the freezing garage, the air biting my skin, and as I stepped inside with nothing but my blanket, I whispered to myself, if only they knew the truth I was hiding. This story is just beginning. Before I reveal the secret that changed everything, make sure you subscribe so you never miss stories that will leave you shocked, emotional, and inspired. The sound of laughter echoed from the living room as I lay down on the cold floor of the garage. My breath turned to fog in the freezing air. The only company I had was the smell of old paint cans and broken furniture piled against the walls. I could still hear my sister bragging about her new iPhone to our relatives, while my father proudly raised a toast for my brother's bright future. Not a single word was spoken about me. It was as if I did not exist. Earlier that evening, when I tried to sit near the fireplace, my aunt had whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Why is he even here? He contributes nothing. He is just a burden." The words stung like knives, and instead of defending me, my parents laughed. My father added, "He should be grateful we even allow him to stay in this house." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them everything. But instead, I clenched my blanket tighter and walked silently to the garage. I lay on the cold garage floor, staring at the cracked ceiling. The sound of the family's laughter felt like thunder pounding in my head. My chest tightened with every cheer I heard from my brother and sister. The more they celebrated, the smaller I felt. A tear slipped down my cheek, but I quickly wiped it away. I had cried too many times before. Tonight, the tears carried more than sadness. They carried anger. They carried humiliation. Why was I always the outsider? Why was I treated as if I was less than human? I thought back to all the years I spent trying to earn their approval, working late shifts, studying when everyone else slept, pushing myself harder than anyone could imagine. Yet, none of it mattered. To them, I would always be the failure, the mistake, the shadow of my siblings. I curled up under the thin blanket, the freezing wind seeping through the cracks in the garage door. My body shivered, but the pain in my heart was far colder. Still, deep within that storm of emotions, there was a fire. A quiet voice whispered inside me, "Hold on. They have no idea who you really are. And when the time comes, the truth will break them." While my family laughed inside the warm house, I lay awake in that freezing garage. But what they did not know was that the garage was not just my punishment. It had become my workshop, my battlefield, and my sanctuary. For months, I had been living two lives. By day, I was the invisible family member who could not even earn a seat at the dinner table. By night, I became something else entirely. I worked silently on my laptop, pouring every ounce of knowledge and skill into a project I dared not reveal. While my parents scolded me for being ordinary, I was designing software that companies twice my size had failed to create. While my siblings flaunted their gifts and praise on social media, I was securing quiet meetings with investors who saw the spark that no one else wanted to acknowledge. It was exhausting. Many nights I coded until sunrise, my eyes burning, my hands shaking. Some days I doubted myself, hearing my father's words echo in my mind, "You will never amount to anything." But then I would look at the folder on my desk, contracts, prototypes, and letters of intent. They were proof that I was not just chasing a dream. I was building an empire brick by brick. The irony was almost poetic. My family thought they had broken me by pushing me into the cold, but the garage had become the birthplace of the very secret that would soon change everything. A week later, Christmas Eve arrived. The house sparkled with decorations, the smell of roasted turkey filled the air, and relatives poured in wearing their best clothes. From the garage window, I could see them laughing, hugging, exchanging gifts. I was not invited inside. My parents had made it clear, stay in the garage. Do not embarrass us tonight. So I stayed silent, until I heard my father's booming voice echo through the walls. Let us raise a glass to my son, David, he declared proudly. He is the future of this family. Unlike some people who waste their lives pretending to be busy, David brings us real pride. The guests laughed. Some nodded in agreement. My mother added loudly, at least David will not end up in a cold garage with nothing to his name. Every word was like a knife, cutting deeper than the winter wind outside. The laughter grew louder, crueler, until it felt like the walls themselves were closing in on me. My sister, smirking, said, maybe we should send him a blanket. He might freeze before the new year. The entire room erupted in laughter again. I clenched my fists, my heart pounding. That was the moment. The humiliation had gone far enough. They believed I was powerless, but what they did not know was that the secret I carried in my bag would soon silence every laugh in that room. And as I listened to them toast to my failure, I whispered to myself, tonight, everything changes. The laughter from the living room grew louder, until I could no longer hold myself back. I pushed the garage door open and stepped inside. The warmth of the fire hit me, but the coldness in the room was sharper than ever as every head turned in my direction. What are you doing here? My father barked. Go back where you belong. I did not move. Instead, I walked slowly to the center of the room, clutching the black folder I had kept hidden for months. The guests whispered, surprised at my boldness. My brother chuckled, raising his glass. Did you come to beg for a seat at the table? My lips curved into a faint smile. No, I said firmly. I came to give you all a reality check. I laid the first document on the table. A contract stamped with the logo of a global tech corporation. The room went silent. One of my uncles leaned closer, his eyes widening. This cannot be, is this real? I nodded. That is only the beginning. I placed another file on the table, bank statements showing deposits larger than anything my parents had ever seen. Gasps spread through the room. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for the papers. This is some kind of trick, my father said sharply, but his voice cracked with doubt. It is no trick, I replied, locking eyes with him. While you forced me into the cold, I was building something you could never imagine. I founded a company. It is now valued at more than everything in this house combined. The room fell into stunned silence. My sister's smirk disappeared, replaced by trembling lips. The relatives whispered furiously, pulling out their phones, some already searching the company's name. But I was not finished. I pulled out the final paper and slid it across the table. My father snatched it up, his face draining of color as he read the words aloud. Property deed. Oakwood Estates? His voice faltered. That was the luxury neighborhood where he always bragged about living among the elite. Yes, I said calmly. The house you live in now, this very house, you sold when you were drowning in debt. The buyer was my company. Which means this home no longer belongs to you. It belongs to me. The entire room erupted in shock. Glasses slipped from hands, whispers turned into gasps, and my mother's face turned pale as she sank into her chair. I stood taller, my voice steady. You laughed at me for sleeping in the garage, but what you did not know is that I already owned the roof above your heads. The silence in the room was deafening. The relatives who had laughed at me moments ago now stared as if they were looking at a stranger. My father's face turned red with rage. He slammed his fist on the table so hard the glasses rattled. You think this makes you better than us? You are still nothing without this family. I took a step forward, my eyes locked on his. No, Father. I am everything despite this family. Gasps echoed. My mother clutched her chest, her voice shaking. You cannot do this house, it has been in our family for years. I held her gaze, calm and unshaken. You should have thought of that before you banished me to the garage. You handed my brother the spotlight, my sister the praise, and me the humiliation. But while you were busy celebrating them, I was building an empire. And now every light you switch on in this house, every step you take across this floor, is a reminder that you mocked the very person who owns it all. My sister's eyes filled with tears. You would not really take it away from us, would you? She whispered, her voice trembling. I let out a bitter laugh. Would I not? Did you not laugh when I froze in the garage? Did you not film me, post pictures, and call me worthless? You showed me no mercy, so why should I? The relatives began murmuring, pulling out their phones, recording, whispering about me, the one they had ignored for so long. My uncle shook his head in disbelief. He has outsmarted all of you. For the first time in my life, I was not the invisible outcast. I was the storm that had shattered their world. My father tried to rise, his pride fighting against the truth, but his legs trembled. He sank back into his chair, his power gone. I looked at each of them, my brother pale, my sister in tears, my mother broken, my father defeated. And in that moment, I realized I no longer needed their approval, their love, or their acceptance. I had something far greater, my freedom, my success, and my dignity. I stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by the same people who once laughed at me. But now, no one dared to speak. The silence was heavier than the winter air outside. I straightened my shoulders, my voice calm but sharp. You forced me to sleep in the garage, thinking you had buried me in shame. But what you did not know was that the garage became my fortress. You gave me rejection, but I turned it into power. You gave me humiliation, but I turned it into determination. My words cut through the silence like a blade. I turned toward the door, my folder tucked firmly under my arm. The relatives parted quietly, their eyes following me with a mix of fear, awe, and respect. At the doorway, I stopped and looked back one last time. My family sat in broken silence, my mother with tears in her eyes, my sister trembling, my brother staring at the floor, and my father pale with defeat. You gave her a luxury car, I said, my voice steady, but I hold the keys to your future. From this night forward, remember this, you did not break me. You built me. I reached for the handle and pulled the door open. Cold air rushed in, but this time it did not sting. It felt refreshing, like freedom. I stepped out into the night, the door closing firmly behind me. And with that sound, every chain they had tried to wrap around me shattered. I was no longer the invisible child in the garage. I was the one who owned the house they lived in, the one who turned their cruelty into victory. And as I walked away, I whispered to myself, they may have forced me into the shadows, but I will make sure they never forget the name of the one they tried to erase. Life has a strange way of testing us. Sometimes, the people who should lift us up are the very ones who try to break us down. My family believed that by pushing me aside, by locking me away in the cold garage, they were teaching me a lesson. But the truth is, they taught me the opposite of what they intended. They taught me that rejection can become strength. That loneliness can become focus. And that humiliation can become the spark that lights a fire no storm can put out. So if you have ever been told that you are ordinary, that you do not deserve success, or that you will never rise above, remember this, it is not their voice that defines you. It is your own. The garage was never my prison. It was the birthplace of my empire. And now, every time my family steps into the home they once bragged about, they will know they are walking on the foundation I built, not them. Moral of the story is never let cruelty chain your spirit. Even the darkest nights can give birth to the brightest mornings. And if this story shocked you, inspired you, or made you think about your own life, then do not forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Vital Secrets for more unbelievable stories that will leave you speechless. Because trust me, what comes next, you do not want to miss.